It's Alex again, and I'm still talking about my guide, 4 Easy Steps to Organizing Your Electronic Folders and Files, which you can download on my website. Today we're talking about step 2, which is deciding on the folder structure. Now this is a step that trips a lot of people up. They get really intimidated and ask me, what's the right way to do it? How do I set it up? The answer is there is no one right solution. It totally depends on you and the contents of your folders and files and how you use them. So this is really something that you need to create based on your specific needs. And I'm going to walk you through what that looks like. So there's 2 main components of the folder structure that I want to talk about today. One is the categories or the classification system that you use. What are you going to call them? What types of information is it? And what are terms that make sense to you, and you'll look at the folder name and know, aha, I know what's in that folder. So the name and the terminology is the first piece. The second piece is your personal preference to folder structure and hierarchy. So let's say you have 10 different projects you're working on, and you're going to have a folder for each one of those. And we're talking about your work computer. So what's going to be on the desktop? Do you want to have the initial folder have one folder for each of the 10 projects, or do you want to start with a folder that says projects and then you would have the subfolders with those? So your preference in terms of how many levels of subfolders do you like to have, or how many different options do you like to see all at once, that's what can get factored into it. Me personally, I would rather start with a few broad categories for the main folders, and then within each of those have different levels of subcategories. But that's just how my brain works, and that is what works for me. So in order to talk about how to do this, I'm going to use these super fun kids construction toys. As you can see, there are all kinds of different shapes and colors. And then we have these connector pieces where they're different sizes. Let's see, we got some long ones, we have some really short ones and medium ones. Let's say these are all the contents of my computer that I want to organize. So I can think about, all right, what am I going to be doing with this? Am I going to be building structures that are a certain color? If that's the case, then maybe I want to have my first class of folders be color. So I would have all the red stuff, and I would want to, organize it out. So, all the red shapes and all the red connectors would go into one. Let's say I just want to have shapes and connectors, and at first it just doesn't matter which, anything beyond that. So then I would organize, I would want to have a shapes folder and put all of the shapes there, no matter what color and size they are. And then I would want all the connectors to go over here. Let's say I have to be really specific, and every time I need something, I need that particular shape and color and size. Well, then that would probably be the first level I want to start with. So it really depends on, this is a time-saving tool for you. So it depends on what's going to be easiest for you to access the information and have to spend as little time possible looking for it. Now, obviously, your work information is a lot more complicated than these fun and exciting little toys, but the principles are the same. Think about, how do you use things, and how many different people are using them, and how often do you need to use certain things. You want to have the things that you're going to need to use the most easily accessible, so it takes you the shortest amount of time to get them, and maybe things that you don't use quite as often, maybe those can be buried in subfolders and different levels, and it might take a few extra seconds to get them, but because you don't use them as much. So think about what's going to make the most sense, what's going to save the most time for you and your teammates. Really think about it. Get creative with the language. Again, it just needs to make sense and resonate with you. It doesn't need to make sense to me if I come in and look at it. You should be able to explain it to me, but it doesn't necessarily need to be intuitive to anybody other than the people that are using it. So that's step number 2, and join me next time when we talk about file labeling. Thanks.